You're listening to Two Mics and a Guest, a podcast of people's stories and the career pathway that led them to where they are. And now your hosts, Michael Holliday and Mike Young. Welcome everybody to Two Mics and a Guest. I am Michael Holliday, and again, joined with me as always is none other than Mr.
Mike Young. Good to be here.
Welcome.
We're excited today. Got one of my best friends in the world here today.
We are all plaided and flanneled out today, gentlemen. For the ones of you that are looking at us on YouTube, you can see what we're talking about. But audio only version, we're very fall today. We're very festive.
I had a student said I look like Bob the Builder today, so I'll take that as a compliment.
Yeah,
nice. That's all good.
Yeah, beloved cartoon. Yeah, fantastic.
Yes.
Absolutely.
Mike, who do we have with us today?
We have Jason Ponder, the Assistant District Attorney General for Coffee County. He is one of my best friends in the world, and I would say that even if you were not here. I'm just letting you know.
I believe that. I say that about you as well.
So,
nice.
And we're excited for you to be here.
Thank you. It's good to be here.
We got you've kind of got the idea of what our podcast is about, and I'm going to start with where you are now, and I'd love to know what a day in the life of Assistant DA is like.
Certainly. Well, first off, what is an assistant DA? An assistant DA is someone who represents the state or the federal government, and in whole. So I don't have a client like a normal attorney has. I represent all of the people, and so even a victim of a crime who comes in does not guide the decisions of the district attorney. The district attorney makes the decisions on behalf of the people. I am a state DA, so I've worked alongside with a lot of federal authorities as well. But I do that. I've been doing this since July 1st of 2000, so a long time. Yeah,
You're old.
I know. I really am. We are considered the chief law enforcement officers of our district, and so the job entails not only being an attorney every day, but it also entails being a criminal investigator every day. And so what your question was what does a day in life look like? Well, it's a variety of things every single day. My day usually starts between 7 and 7:30 when my phone starts chirping at me. And it's always a police officer or a lawyer wanting something to do with scheduling, or they've got somebody stopped at traffic and want to know what to do, charging decisions, do I have to show up to court today, that sort of thing. Get to the office about 8, and we try to have a quiet time there. The other ADAs and I try to congregate there at about 8 o'clock and drink a little coffee and talk about what our days look like. Try to share with each other cases and experiences. I get asked a lot of questions. We try to take a very strong team approach, which is one of the advantages of working with other lawyers. When you're in private practice, a lot of times, especially in rural areas, you're on your own. So
Right.
you don't get to benefit other eyes and ears and minds.
Right.
Then we have court most every day. Our office handles 3 different courts here: the juvenile court, the general sessions court, and the circuit court. Some areas call the criminal court. The juvenile court is self-explanatory. It is for kids who get into delinquent trouble and have to go to juvenile court. And the general sessions court is a county court. It has jurisdiction to handle misdemeanors and traffic citations and that sort of thing. We're there 3 to 4 days a week. There's a lot of volume in that court. Many people are not represented by attorneys in that court, so we deal with the defendants directly. And then the other court, our state criminal court, almost everyone is represented. It is most often felony cases that range, well, the entire gamut, from murder to theft to drugs. And so most days we have a team that goes to court, and then we have some that stay behind in the office to deal with walk-ins and complaints and to help with investigation questions with the various law enforcement agencies. And then we close out the day again, usually by coming together and talking and sharing experiences.
Mm-hmm.
So that's what a day looks like for us.
Now, I said Coffee County. Does that cover the region, or is it a bigger region, or is it the county? Is that the?
I would say that this is very similar experience to all rural districts.
Mm-hmm.
I was an acting ADA in Knox County my third year of law school, and so I got a lot of experience there as well. You still have a very team approach. It's just that there are more teams.
Gotcha.
And so every division in these large, we've got Memphis that has, I think, 150 assistant DAs.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so they still break off into teams so that they can all help each other out.
Divide up the caseloads.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. Exactly. So I think it looks similar in every district, and I have statewide jurisdiction. So I've prosecuted cases in many, many, many counties. When they have conflicts, I've tried cases in Hamilton County, Rutherford County.
And
Davidson
you're assigned
County.
that through the state?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. If they have, say, for example, an employee's cousin gets arrested for
Right.
something. In fact, I have one now where the victim is a parent of a victim witness coordinator in one of our neighboring counties, and so I'm handling that case in Warren County right now.
Mm-hmm.
So a little bit of traveling,
Mm-hmm.
a lot of teamwork.
We're a small county. I'm sure y'all weren't busy.
We're not busy at all. Not at all, no. I think I have about 150 active files right now.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. Now, how many are in your office? How many attorneys, and how's that?
Let's see. Okay, so we have an elected district attorney, which is Craig Northcott. He is my boss. And then we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Put you on the spot here.
I know, I have to count. We have 6 ADAs, one of which is a grant-funded ADA that does nothing but DUIs.
Mm-hmm.
The rest of us do everything.
Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Wow. So lots of stuff that you just shared there. Like, it sounds like the volume in one court, it's kind of spitting them out.
Yes.
And then the complexity of some of these criminal cases varies, obviously, I would
Absolutely.
assume, right?
Absolutely.
We were fortunate to have Jason Kennedy in here. He's an investigator in your office.
Yes.
When you talk about team, it's not just lawyers. I mean,
No.
you've got a whole group of folks in there, right?
That's exactly right. And we are there working as a team, and it's always taken that way because whereas I'm an expert in certain areas, Jason Kennedy knows a lot of stuff that I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And our teams go way beyond our county as well.
Right.
You get into some of the more sophisticated cases. We do have a crime lab that we use in Nashville through the Tennessee Bureau of Investigation, and they have experts in fields like DNA, forensic chemistry, forensic biology, latent print analysis, which is the fingerprints.
Right.
A lot of things. We have very good technical experts who are able to get into computers, who are able to get into phones, who are able to get into electronic devices to gather evidence. We also share resources with the federal government.
Mm-hmm.
The FBI lab has done work for me. The DEA lab has done work for me. We're very much, the team does not just stay in Coffee County.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
We can call in resources. In fact, our crime scene analysis team comes from Nashville.
Mm-hmm.
When we have a major crime that requires a lot of DNA gathering and it's just beyond our resources here locally, then the TBI sends a team that is specific to processing crime scenes.
Mm-hmm.
That's all they do. And so one of the things about being in a big metropolitan area, you can focus on one thing. This occurs for ADAs too. An ADA who is working in Memphis or Nashville or Knoxville or Chattanooga oftentimes only does one type of case.
Mm-hmm.
And so obviously in the more rural districts, you do what comes across your desk. And so, we lean on them sometimes for advice and guidance. And so it's a great group, and the group extends literally from Bristol to Memphis.
Now, obviously, it sounds like reams of data is getting collected from all these different specialties. I'm assuming, in my head, ultimately, as your team is sitting around drinking coffee, but other times, you're analyzing this data, building a case, correct? I mean, that's the...
Yes, I would say at least half of my job is investigations, is fact finding, fact gathering. I don't know if you guys have interviewed a civil attorney yet.
Not yet.
But when you do, civil attorneys, and I was one for a little while, you spend a lot more time with document preparation, and you spend more time researching laws that go back into the 18th century. I mean, you get into things that are a little more legally complicated. In the criminal field, most of our complications come from facts. And so we spend a great deal of time fact-finding and proving, because we have the highest level of, or burden of proof of any court case, which is beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yep.
Well, I'm jumping on you.
No. So at what age maybe do we start maybe seeing some interest in law or this direction in your life?
Oh, that's funny.
Did we know this in high school? Did we know this in college?
Before that, yeah.
Before that even, wow.
Yeah. My mother tells a story that when I was a very young child, that I would get up and go and crawl in bed with her at 10:30 after the 10:30 news and watch Perry Mason.
Oh, nice, yeah.
And she knew then that this was something that I had a really strong interest in, and never really stopped. I'm fortunate that it's gone in different directions. When I went to college, I was going to be an FBI agent. That's what my interest was in. I went to the University of Tennessee at Knoxville. I grew up in Dickson County, not unlike Coffee County.
Okay.
Much more rural than Tullahoma is, but if you get in the outskirts of Coffee County, that's what Dickson County looks like.
Okay. Yep.
I grew up on a farm, which is hauling hay is why I went to law school.
It'll do it every time. Right?
Yeah, get out of the manual labor business.
It's a great motivator.
Square bells around, though.
Oh, square.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying.
They didn't round bell until I went to college.
You love them green square bells.
Oh, loved them. Yeah, they were great motivation. But I went to UT. I majored in accounting. I had no interest in accounting at all. But the FBI told me that this is one of their needs. This is what they needed. And so the agents that I spoke with, they have a field office in Knoxville, and they said, go and study this and then come back and talk to us. And so I did that and got my degree in accounting and almost finished a master's in accounting. Still didn't like accounting and still really had no interest in being an accountant. And applied to and was accepted to law school. I interned with the Tennessee Supreme Court. Got to meet a lot of people there. Interned with the administrative offices of the court and got to meet a lot of people there. And learned probably more in just doing what you guys are doing right now, which is talking to people who have gone out and done it than I learned in any classroom, and figured out what I wanted to do, which was to be a prosecutor.
That's something to say about real world life experience that you learn that is just so beneficial for a lot of people.
Yes. And I can't give you a single class that taught me what I do today. Not one. All of them combined together gave me skills that I use. But as far as giving me a picture of what my career path looks like, and I think most professionals would tell you this, school didn't look like that.
Yeah.
And so, when you look at kids, and I've had interns, I've had high school interns, I've had college interns, I've had law school interns. We actually have a special rule with the Tennessee Supreme Court. If I get a third year law intern, I can actually let them try a jury trial, and I've done so several times.
Wow.
I will grab one out of my desk and say, you're not going to make a plea offer. You go try this case. And it's invaluable experience. I mean, they get to strut back to their school, and they've tried a jury trial, and none of their other classmates have done that.
Really?
Yeah. And so, in fact, our clerk and master here tried her first jury trial with me, Sheila Prophet, and she did a magnificent job. It's that hands-on experience and making that contact with people who are in the field that really drive you toward where you'll land, I think.
I know we overdo sports metaphors sometimes, but the school is really the weight room, and then you're talking about the game,
That's
right?
exactly
that's sort of what we're talking about.
Yeah.
You're teaching yourself how the skills and stuff, you're training, building those muscles there, learning how to learn is kind of what the schooling's about. The applications where you get on the field, right?
That's exactly right. And, that if you look historically at not just attorneys and doctors and plumbers and electricians and on and on and on, apprenticeships go back much longer than formal education does.
Sure.
And so, it used to be Abraham Lincoln didn't go to law school. He taught himself how to be a lawyer and then became one. And so it's something I think we've lost a lot of, and we need to focus more on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I think I had look, I'm an old fart. I've been around for a long time, but I remember we had in business, I was majored in business, and we would have Fortune 500 guys would come in and interview, and they'd come speak to our business classes. And I remember distinctly one saying, and we're sitting in there, business majors, all cocky, and he said, we would actually rather hire a liberal arts major. And we were all like, that's why. And he said, because they know how to communicate, we can teach them our business, but we want someone that can do this thing. And I think that was overstating it some. He wasn't trashing our whole degree, but he was also talking about this bigger picture about learning how to do things, right? And that's the thing that's important. I want to hear your story from Dickson. You talked about Perry Mason and all of this thing. Did you went to high school in Dickson?
I did. There was one high school there then, which was Dickson County Central High School. Creekwood had not been built yet, and so it was a large school because it serviced the entire county. And when I was not in school, I was working. My family ran an ice company, and so between that and farming and school, I was always busy.
Yeah. Any extracurricular activities in high school?
Well, I played sports, and I also was in the band, and I was a trumpet player. I played football for a while. Didn't like football very much. Loved baseball. Played a lot of baseball. About 15 years I played baseball, and the rest was work.
Yeah, right.
So that's really what it was.
Now, did you know you were going to Tennessee?
I did. I had an aunt and uncle who were both attorneys in Nashville who both went to law school at UT, and when I was old enough to do it, so when I was 6 or 7, right. I would literally go and spend the night in the dorms with my aunt, and I was orange-blooded from the time I can remember, and it all had everything to do with sports. I heard there could be a school there.
Yeah.
They go to class sometimes.
And
there's stuff other than Neyland Stadium there.
Yeah. There were these other buildings. I didn't know what they were for, but
get in the way of the tailgating. I mean, there's just too many buildings.
That's right.
These could all be parking lots. What are we doing here?
Right. Yeah. And then back in those days, UT was pretty easy to get into. It was pretty affordable. Nowadays, it's much harder to get into, and I probably couldn't go there today. I really don't think I'd get in. I really don't think I'd get in. But,
I think I have that same story. I think it would be the same thing. But go ahead.
I went to UT, lived on campus, loved it. I played in the band there. And
how does that feel to be a member of the Pride of the Southland now?
I have to say that it's a heck of a rush, being on a field with 110,000 people screaming and playing Rocky Top. And that's back in the days when we actually won football games.
Yes.
And so they would literally fill the stadium up, and they were excited because the team would come out and do something. Of course, we're rebuilding. We're rebuilding.
We just lost all of our Tennessee fan base on that comment.
No,
right
they
here.
know. The hardcore Tennessee
true.
fan
No,
base
no.
are going.
That is true.
I have 2 degrees from the University of Tennessee. I have been orange-blooded since I could walk and talk. No, they understand.
Look, I bleed purple and gold. Met my wife at LSU, but my middle son went to UT, and I bought season tickets for 3 years. I'm all in.
You
too.
had a little in there, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a great school, and it was a great experience for me. Coming from a small county like I did, there are a lot of things that I saw at UT I'd never seen before.
Mm-hmm.
You know, and
Speak to that a little bit. A lot of folks, I've had students talk about, I don't want to go away to school, or it's too big, or it's all those kind of things, and they're kind of intimidated by a school like that.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, when you say the stadium holds 110,000 people, that's bigger than most of these small towns in these counties around here, right? And so, how was that experience? I know you had been going. Obviously, you had your uncles and aunt that you'd been on campus and that kind of thing, but was it intimidating, or how did you work through that, you think?
well, you know, and I went. I knew where Neyland Stadium was,
Right.
so I knew where to go for band rehearsal, but I didn't know anybody else. But I was still excited to be there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like I was talking about it with these metro districts
Right.
as DAs. When you go to a university the size of UT or LSU or Alabama or Auburn, or you go to these big places.
We don't encourage Alabama, but go ahead.
Well, but again, you know, I agree.
We just lost another fan base. Thanks, everybody.
I hear they have nice coloring programs there. Anyway, but if you go to one of those schools, what you're going to find out is that there are communities within the university.
That's right.
Mm-hmm.
And so you're not going to be expected to know 30,000
No,
students.
you'll get a friend group. You'll
You're,
find
you're going to have 8 or 10 people who are in your group. Sometimes it's a diverse group where you have different people who are different types of study. That's usually brought on by residence halls. Sometimes it's people inside of the field that you're studying, but even within that field, there'll be a variety of people. You know, and so you make some of the best friends you'll ever make in life when you
Totally
go to
agree.
college, because you go there and all of you are scared. All of you don't know what's going on. None of you know anyone there hardly. And so you make lifelong bonds when you go.
Absolutely. I
Yep.
mean, I'm sure that's
Yeah.
your experience as well.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I always tell students, I don't care what school they go to, if they go to Montlow or if they go to UT, wherever they go, you make it small, right?
That's right.
And so you find your group wherever that might be. It could be in a club, it can be in an academic group, it could be a band or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Make whatever school you're going to small, and that's where you're going to meet your friends and those kind of things. So that's an important thing. Now you talked about the FBI dream a little bit, and then went into to law. Was, and I may have missed this, was pre-law, was that your goal in undergrad? Were you going to law school when you started?
Yes. Yes,
Okay.
I was. I was looking for every avenue toward the FBI at that time. And so it just increased my chances. I believe, and I still believe this when I advise students, if you're able to pick out what you want to look like when you're done with your education, then draw your education map toward that destination. You know, don't just get in the car and start driving around randomly. Pick a direction and go.
That's good.
Now, some kids they don't know what they want to do, so you may have to drive around and explore a little bit. But once you have found and understanding that the classroom doesn't look like what it looks like
That's
on the
right.
outside world, but once you have found, you know, I want to be what this woman does. I like this field. This is what I want to do. Then draw your map, and so that's what guided me through. I graduated early because I didn't have to look around. I knew what I wanted to do.
Right.
And so, at least I thought I knew what I wanted to do. Then I got out of law school and realized that the FBI was going to send me to I was either going to New York, Los Angeles, or Miami, and I had no choice. And that's where I was going to spend the next 5 or 6 years. And I just made a life decision that I didn't want to do that.
Right.
You know, I that's not something I wanted to do.
Yeah.
So I sort of pivoted toward
Dickson
being
different
a
than those
prosecutor.
places?
Yeah. Dickson and Miami, I don't see any difference there.
A little, yeah. Yeah, the diversity is about the same, but no. I just didn't want to go that far from home. I'm a family-oriented person, and I think I matured some, and that changed my goals as well.
No, that's good. And it speaks to what you talked about, the advice of kind of thinking about where you want to go and where you want to live and what you want to do kind of thing. So I think that's important. How has this field changed in the years you've been doing it? You've been doing it a while. You've got a lot of experience in it. What's changed the most, do you think?
Well, you know, probably the public perception of law enforcement is it changes almost with the wind. There's a lot of distrust for law enforcement, which translates into distrust for what I do.
Right.
And I used to tell people when I was in private practice, no one likes lawyers until they need one.
Right.
And then all of a sudden they're your best friend. And so no one comes to see me on a good day.
That's right.
No one comes to see me when something good has happened in their life.
It's a lot of hat in hand when they come to you, isn't it?
Well, or they're angry because they've been victimized. Right.
Yeah,
I mean, I'm either dealing with a defendant who has made a really stupid mistake, or I'm dealing with a victim who has been harmed by someone. But either way, I'm not dealing with anybody on a good day.
Yeah.
So the thing that has probably changed the most really isn't that dynamic. It's more the dynamic of being out in the public and listening to the public mentality about how they view law enforcement.
Perception,
Yeah, and whether they can trust law enforcement, whether law enforcement has systemic racism, whether there are, and these are real hot button issues, and I'm not really going to go into all of that.
Right.
But what I will say is that I have never encountered a law enforcement officer who is going out to do harm. These kids that come out and go into law enforcement make next to nothing financially, so they're not doing it for the money.
Yep.
Right? I promise you. They're doing it because they want to do some good. They want to come out in the community and help people, protect people. When things are going badly, most of us can avoid that.
Right.
Yeah.
These men and women have to go toward it.
Yeah. And make decisions quickly.
And in a moment.
Yep.
And with the technology improving, the ability for us to play Monday morning quarterback has become much, much better.
Yeah, Jason Kennedy touched on that. Yeah.
Yeah, and so with body cams, and I'm not against them. I'm not against having cameras and holding people accountable. I'm in the accountability business.
Right.
But I think we have to also approach it with the understanding of what mindset they go into these situations with, and the camera doesn't catch all that.
No.
You talked about, and you alluded to this, of what you're meeting people on a bad day, and we've all read the news at some of the, we've seen the news at some of the horrific crimes. What's the most rewarding thing about your job?
Best thing about my job, I have focused through the years on prosecuting cases that have child victims. When I first started at the DA's office, July 1st of 2000, I saw that as the most neglected area of law enforcement and prosecution here. And I felt and still feel that it's the most important. The protection of our young, that's why we started building fires and caves and sticking together, was to protect our young.
Right.
I mean, animals do it.
Yeah.
Right.
It's icky, and it's uncomfortable to sit and talk to an 8-year-old about some sort of molestation.
Right.
It's tough, and I don't want to do it, but someone has to do it, or no one will do it.
Yeah.
And so it takes time, it takes patience, it takes training, it takes using the teams that we have available to us, and we've come a long way in 20 years as far as the resources that we now have available to us. And then putting this child in a situation where they have to face the offender in trial. And we are still, although we have had some law changes that have helped a bit, but I've still not tried a child sex abuse case where the child didn't testify.
Wow.
And getting that kid ready to stand up there in a court in front of the offender and talk about what happened is the biggest challenge. Now, you asked me about the biggest reward. Right after that, when they see that offender being drug out in shackles forever, and they know that they were believed and they were heard,
and they're safer now.
And they're safer
and
now.
Justice,
And
justice was served,
and it will never happen to another one. The biggest motivator for these young, it's usually young girls, but not always. Sometimes it's young boys. The biggest motivator I've seen is not so much I want them to pay for what they did to me. It's that I don't want them to do this to someone else.
Yeah.
And they do it out of a sense of protection of other children.
Yeah. That's huge. And me and you've talked about that before, and I know that's from your heart too. I mean, you don't need me to say that here, but I know that that's exactly where you're at. Before we close out, what would you say to your younger self? Sitting here, you've got all this experience and doing these things. What would you say?
Well, I guess it would depend on what age.
You'd probably tell yourself you hate accounting, so don't go down that accounting road.
Don't go down that road. No, I think what I would probably tell myself is take a breath. If there's one thing that I've learned, not just personally, but also my sisters, both two of my sisters are pharmacists, and we have a pretty well-educated family. And you can look around and you can see people who are getting through it easier than you are. And then you can look around and see people who quit and give up and walk away.
Right.
I think what I would tell myself is take a breath. You've made your decision. You're going to do this. You're going to do this. And it may take more than one try. You're going to fall down.
Right.
You're going to screw up.
Yep.
You're going to make bad choices. But if you're committed and you're willing to put in the work, you'll get where you want to be.
Trust the process.
Yeah. And I mean, school is a gauntlet, and I think most professionals would tell you the same thing, and that is, if you want to do it, you'll do it.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of whether you have the staying power to overcome the obstacles that will happen. So take a breath. That's what I would tell myself, because I stressed out a lot when I was a student.
Yeah. I'm sure law school's not all roses.
It seems like every time you allow yourself to take a breath, you can recognize there's people there to help you walk through that.
That's
part,
right.
Right. There's always going to be somebody that help you there, and people want you to succeed.
They want you to succeed. That's correct. And for kids out there who I don't care what you want to do. For any student out there, whether you want to be an electrician or a plumber or a brain surgeon, anyone who has devoted their life to a profession wants to pass that along.
Yeah, that's right.
And so go find someone that does what you think you may want to go do, and spend a little time with us. Just say, hey, would you mind if I just followed you around for a day or two? And I promise you, they're going to say yes.
Yep.
Oh, I think that's what we hope for, even in this remote way with our podcast. That's kind of what we want to do with this. And
I think
that's
it's a
one
great
reason
idea.
we appreciate you coming on here and talking with us.
Absolutely.
Yeah, that's so good.
All right. Well, thanks. I appreciate it.
My pleasure. Anytime.
It's fantastic.
All right, everybody, that's been this episode of Two Mics and a Guest. We hope to see you soon.